Welcome everyone to the
Yeah.
Cappuccino Club's social TV channel. It's day 64 since the lockdown commenced here. And so today we're going to reflect on the week that was, as well as level 3 that commences on 1 June for South Africa. So don't go away, we'll be right back.
Best is yet to come.
If you're just joining us, a hearty welcome from Cape Town and South Africa. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda. We go live 6 days a week and we talk about COVID-19 and how it's impacted our lives and, more importantly, the way that we do business. We are live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, Twitter, Periscope. So wherever you are joining us, a hearty welcome to you too, and a very warm welcome to my co-host, Paola Manuel. Paola, how are you?
Good. Just been giggling at some of the sort of memes coming through. It's the first time there's a Friday, it's Friday afternoon and people are looking forward to Monday because of course, on Monday, level 3 starts. So, and of course, together with level 3, you can now get your favorite hot pie again. You can now go to the drive-throughs. Lots of, lifestyle sort of changes to the rules, which is quite exciting. And of course, the whole discussion around kids going back to school. So there's a lot of noise in this whole COVID-19 space right now in terms of rules and regulations. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to like what I can get out of Shay when he begs me to take him through the McDonald's drive. I could actually possibly get him to wake up in bed on Monday. Yeah, so that's where we're at.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's so much changes that's going to be taking place.
Yeah.
And again, I am excited, but excited in a very reserved manner, if that even makes sense somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yes, we do need to open up. I was at a meeting today with the Solidarity Fund, and they were talking about, I mean, they're doing some great work in supporting people at this time, because a lot of support are needed for many businesses. In part, we were talking quite a bit about the travel industry, for example, that has been one of the hardest hit industries with COVID-19 and the lockdown. And the difficulty with the travel industry is we have no idea how long it's going to take for them to recover. And in the meantime, they're incurring huge losses. And the interesting thing was they did a poll during this meeting to ask people how they feel about travel at this moment. If currently in South Africa, for example, you are only permitted to travel if for business purposes. And so
Yeah.
they were doing a poll on various things, and they asked people, if you were able to travel for leisure or anything other than business right now, would you get on a plane? And it was amazing that most of the people polled said no. That speaks to how people are feeling on the ground
Yeah.
right now about travel. There's a lot of people that want the industry to open because it affects so many lives and livelihoods. But yeah, so what else is news that you found with
Yeah.
COVID-19 and us opening up?
Look, Brigitte, to be honest with you, I would not travel. I just wouldn't get onto a plane. I think it's like going to be this hotbed of possible contamination. So I wouldn't get on a plane. So I understand why people are saying that. I think some of the interesting stuff for level 3 that I've observed is that there's a lot less clarity coming out of the ministries that are affected by all the changes for level 3. With level 5, when we had that hard lockdown, it was like just everybody was on top of it. It was a well-oiled machine. There were a few things that weren't clarified, but everybody was standing up and speaking. We saw the ministers getting involved. Right now, everybody, there's just like so many unanswered questions about level 3. So I know that our Minister of Labour is probably inundated with questions and just has to make so many decisions. But the overarching thing is about keeping workers safe. But the biggest
Yeah.
discussion has been around whose responsibility is it to keep workers safe. And I think some of the big changes coming out now, the new changes have been around the fact that, if an employee can prove to you or motivate that they have been in a situation that is risky, they may have had somebody who's been infected staying in their home, and any kind of similar story to that, they are actually entitled to 14 days paid leave while they
Oh
quarantine.
my goodness.
Yes, yes. So if they can motivate for that, that's massive. The second thing that that they've now come to conclude is that PPE and any kind of safety precautions that cost anything actually has to be covered by the employee. Sorry, the employer, and cannot be recovered from the employee. So that's another cost for opening up for the employer that I don't think employers considered. And then I know there was this discussion about these two masks, that you could have. You had to have two masks and it needed to be ironed and washed at your workplace. That's been thrown out. So, and then where there's a lot of gray, it's around people with people who are high risk to COVID. Can they work from home? If they can't work from home, what are we going to do about those individuals who have current employment contracts with their companies? So a lot of gray area, but like lots of hectic discussions going on at the moment. So some hectic stuff there for employers to consider if they are going to be opening up with level 3.
I've heard from a lot in my own circle, people that are going to continue working from home. And I think, for those who can work from home, it probably is the best case scenario, both for the employee and the employer, because the less people you have on site, the less responsibility you have for keeping them safe and keeping your clients safe that come in through the door.
Yeah,
And in terms of, so you kind of have to weigh up the expense of having that person on site versus the expense of having that person stay safe and off site but still productive.
yeah. So so there's such a lot for employers to be considering at this point in time, and it just seems to sort of come back to the fact that if you can work from home, work from home. I think even if employers could be allowing the employees that option, it's just going to cost them a lot less. And it's really weird. And the other thing is, if you feel unsafe or you feel that your employer hasn't done enough to create a safe working environment for you, you cannot be expected to go back to work. So that's going to be very interesting because, of course, employers are, especially sort of small business owners, and I think even the big corporates. There's some of the, we call them the usual suspects, where they are just not going to make, they're going to try and cut corners, and they're just not going to do all that they need to do. They're not going to be compliant, and employees now have the right to say, if there's no sanitizer and there's no PPE for me, I am not coming to work. And you still have to take care, you still have to pay me my salary, but I'm not coming to work if those precautions are not in place. That's crazy. That is going to cause so much debate and discussion. And it's going to, I think it's, if I was an employer and I needed to get my people back to work, Brigitte, I would just dot all my I's, cross all my T's, document it to the hilt, really sort of document every aspect of precaution that I'm taking, make sure my staff are safe, make sure that they're filling in a questionnaire about where were you for the weekend, who did you come into contact with, etc., etc. Do everything you need to do to keep yourself and your employees safe and to stop. I think there's 170 inspectors at the moment across the country. To stop one of those inspectors from walking into your workplace and closing you down after already making a huge capital contribution in terms of keeping your employees safe. So there is a lot going on at the moment.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt. And one thing that's concerned me, I don't know if you've heard about it, but I have seen numerous people that, hair salons, nail technicians that are opening up in defiance of the regulations of level 3. They're just
Yeah.
simply defying the regulations, and they're opening up. They're saying, "I need to make money." I've seen so many ads go flying around on Facebook, Instagram, other social media sites where nail technicians are advertising that they're opening up on the 1st of June,
Yeah. So
in defiance of the regulations.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I understand it. Let me just sort of start there. I understand it. Look, there are a lot of hairdressers and nail technicians and people in that beauty space that will say to you the very nature of our business is to be sort of very sort of highly sanitized. We work with water all the time, etc., etc. But it's not about that, in my opinion. It's about the fact that you will have 4 or 5 and sometimes up to 6 or 7 people sitting in a foyer or waiting room waiting to actually be taken care of. It's not the fact that you've got a mask on and that you're washing your hands and that doing everything that you need to do. It's about that space that they need to wait in. And unfortunately, the very nature of their business is that people wait because you do not know how long the client's going to take. So even if you are booking them like every hour, there is the husband that has to wait for his wife because she can't drive, or the daughter that's dropping the mother off that's waiting for them because it's a half an hour for a nails to be done. That is where the problem sits. So, I really understand it. I mean, these are lots of the hairdressers and these beauty and nail technicians, they are the sole breadwinners, and they're doing that job because they couldn't find anything else to do, so they went to go and study that and they invested in themselves and now they're doing that. um to be a more reasonable, if I could put it like this, more reasonable solution would be house visits, where you are able to keep your social distance, in terms of from everybody else. You've got a mask on, you're taking care of it, you working through a screen, or I don't know how they would do it. But to be able to actually say, I'm busy taking care of my clients, I don't have the risk, and so on and so on. But these people are, sort of the breadwinners in their home. So for them to be sitting at home, it's crazy. And their craft is so easy to execute in someone's home.
Absolutely, it's going to be interesting to watch, and with so much activity going on, we haven't peaked yet, and our figures are climbing rapidly, especially in the Western Cape. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next week when we open up the economy a little bit more.
Yeah,
What happens to our figures then? Because I am anticipating seeing, us shifting back because domestic workers are returning to work. So I'm anticipating seeing full taxis, despite the fact that we're supposed to have social distancing.
absolutely.
I'm not sure that with domestic workers returning to work and so many other people returning to work, that taxis are going to be adhering to the necessary
Yeah.
regulations with regards to social distancing. I'm
Mm.
not sure how that's going to work. So it's going to be a very interesting week that's lying ahead for us.
Yeah, yeah. I know the taxi industry would kill me for this statement, but look, they don't have the reputation for compliance anyway, under the best of circumstances, COVID-19 or no COVID-19. So, um, for them, it's about how many bodies, warm bodies, how many bums in seats, how quickly you can get them there, and how quickly you can do a return trip. So that's really their objective. And so you've got all these people returning to work. You've got religious gatherings again from the 1st of June. You've got, they say not more than 50 people, not longer than 2 hours, etc., etc. And
Viola,
now
that's going to be an interesting one. I'm really waiting with bated breath to see how religious organizations are going to manage only having 50 people.
yeah,
What are you going to do? Is it the first 50 that arrives, like rush in at first 50
yeah.
and then close the doors?
And
How are you going to manage that?
yeah, and of course, as I understand it, no singing is allowed. Nobody's allowed to sing. You've got to have a pre-recorded song service, which means that that's a huge part of worship, especially in the Christian faith. It's a huge part of worship. So to take that out of worship, just from personal. Our church leadership has sort of been saying it's too risky. They will continue the way we are until it's more clear in terms of what's going on. So it's a difficult call for church leaders to make, for religious leaders to make, in terms of their people coming back. And it's very different under that sort of spiritual and emotional state to control people. No hugging, no greeting, no, you've got to sanitize, you've got to check temperatures and so on. These individuals have a very special relationship with each other. They've never seen each other. It is not an employee-employer kind of relationship.
No.
This is a completely different relationship. They haven't seen each other for more than 2 months. They now are going to want to chat to each other. The temptation to do that is just going to be incredible. And of course, that increases the risk and so on. So, and especially for older people, I think, are the ones that have missed the sort of assembling more than anybody else, and have not been able to really get their heads around the whole online thing,
Worship thing, yeah.
worship, and it's just too new and just too foreign for them. So they are going to want to be there, and they are the high risk individuals. So it's really just going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, especially the first 2 or 3 weeks going into level 3. But I think for employers especially, the conversation we've just had isn't irrelevant. It's actually super relevant, because all those people who are the sort of your domestic workers, people who are working in your place of work, are possibly going to be people that have gone to church, or wanted to be at church that Sunday before, and are going to, if there's any kind of contamination there, going to want to come, are going to unwittingly come to work, and they're going to contaminate your staff. And so, the idea of the registers, the temperature checks, the sanitation, all of that is going to apply to any place where people are going to go into.
And of course, your mode of transport to work comes into play as well. How would you be traveling to work? Is your mode of transportation going to be risky?
Yes.
And are you, as an employer, willing to carry that risk, because you do run the risk of having to close down for another 14 days should one of your staff members contract COVID. And I'm still continuing to see shopping malls and stores having to close down. We had one close by to my home closed down. I think it's for the third time now. They had a casual worker coming in over the weekend that was COVID-19 positive, and for the third time they've had to close for 14 days. It's hectic. It's hectic. There's a huge cost factor to that.
Absolutely. And really, Brigitte, if you start calculating the cost to the businesses, I just don't know how businesses are actually going to survive this if they are not going to insist on being super careful. And I'm almost certain that after the first time they were closed down, the second time they were closed down, everybody must have been on such high alert that a third closure is not something you're expecting. But that just shows you how easily it can happen. I mean, we spoke about it on the show. If you have a security person, or the person in charge of sanitizing guests, customers coming into your store, that is just not vigilant and not on top of it, and just one person comes in there without sanitizing their hands, you run such a risk. So, for employers, the things we've been saying, Brigitte, briefing your staff every single day, every time before a shift, briefing them on the importance of them actually staying on top of the the sanitary conditions and the safety measures and the precautions that you have put in place. Just managing that, and schools are supposed to open on the 1st of June. There's so many schools already closing down because the teachers have all tested positive. I mean, it's just crazy. It's going to be very interesting from Monday.
Absolutely. I must tell you, talking about stores and shopping and sanitization, I have never seen shopping carts so clean. it's
Yeah,
it's
Yeah,
quite something simply being able to take a shopping cart and not having to double wipe it yourself,
yeah,
because they
yeah,
are keeping them super clean. So I guess it's got to be some pluses in amongst all this craziness that we're having
yeah.
to deal with at the moment.
Yeah, no, look, I must tell you, I'm finding my humor in just some of the memes that have gone around. It's just been crazy. There's a sort of picture of this guy dressed in full kit. I mean, full kit from head to toe, and he comes up and says hi, and they say, "Good afternoon, doctor." And he says, "No, I'm your hairdresser." So it's just really, some of them are so funny. And it's great. It's great. I think that's one of the things about South Africans. We manage to hold our sense of humor in the midst of crisis, but it's just I think people are scared, people are insecure, people are worried. I think people are starting to really understand that this thing is very serious. I think people are starting to understand that all the sort of uh, concessions that were given are now sort of running to an end. Your sort of 3-month concessions are now coming to an end. You have to start earning a living soon. And even government, all the help that they were giving, it's oversubscribed. There's no way you can jump onto that anymore. So it's just, I think people are starting to, and I'm just starting to feel, Brigitte, that there's a heaviness in the air. Even when you do that quick shopping run, people are not smiling. Before, people, you could sort of see their eyes smiling, above their masks. People are not smiling.
Mm,
People are not chit-chatting. It's sort of a very eyes down, get into your car, very, I don't know,
somber.
somber. It's very somber, very, people look, um, uncomfortable. People are unhappy. It's starting to come through now. And so I think a lot of this, sort of moving to level 3 is just trying to just balance things, just trying to open up the economy. But there's just so much to consider.
Well, interesting thing, on the show before this, we were talking to a psychologist, and she was saying, we shouldn't forget, in amongst all this madness, that we've occurred not just one, but a number of losses in the process of COVID-19 and the process of living under lockdown. And so, we're going through not one, but different kinds of stages of grief in trying to cope with the lockdown and the effects that it's had on us. So we're
Yeah,
all at different phases of our grief at the sense of loss that we have occurred over this last few months with lockdown. So it is, without a doubt, it's a stressful period. So
yeah,
on Monday, we're looking forward to talking to a journalist. That's going to be an interesting conversation, because there are a
yeah,
lot of journalists that are freelancers, and they have not had support from government. And so we'll talk a little bit about how lockdown and COVID-19 has an effect on journalism as frontline workers. And on Tuesday, we're going to speak to someone about who lives with comorbidities, people with weakened immune systems. So we've got an interesting week that lies ahead.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that's kind of a wrap for our chat for this evening.
Yeah, I think just for us to, one of the things that I've been sort of highlighting for myself, just coming out of each of our shows, especially where we have, a guest that's just been amazing. It's just sort of, and just before the show, I sort of looked through that again. And I think one of the important things just at this stage, and look for me personally where it is now, is the idea that one of our guests gave us, where you really just need to give everybody their sort of quiet time sticker, or the sort of leave me alone sticker, or just I need some space sticker. From your youngest kid right through to the oldest person at home, just having that available to stick on the door and say, like, now I just need to, like, sort of be left alone, just let me gather my thoughts. And I think that's also a good indicator of where your kids are. Just one of the conversations that Shay just suddenly said to me this morning, have we already been in lockdown for 3 months? And so I started realizing that, the time, it's starting to get to him now, and it's starting, he's starting to want to know about when will this all end and so on. And he's going to be 11 soon. So, just checking in with your kids. Initially we were all checking in with everybody. Those phone calls have slowed down. Those emails have slowed down. But I think with your family and especially your kids, just check in with them. Just make sure they're okay. Give them the tools that they need to just sort of escape it a little bit. And again, especially when we start talking about just getting away from this privileged space, when we start talking about like 6 or 7 people in a home, just if you can encourage them just to take a little bit of time out when they can. Okay, that's me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us
Thanks
live, and
everybody.
thank you to everyone that'll be catching the show on the replay. Stay safe, everyone. I'll be back again tomorrow with some more news for you. Stay
Thanks.
safe. Be
Thanks
well.
to
Have a
everybody.
great evening.
Bye-bye.